Hello, everybody. Brian Good here. Thanks for clicking on Storm Talk. I'm going to cover the temperatures and a couple things first before we get into the storms, and then I'll get into a lot of the juicy details for what's coming down the road here. Got a lot to discuss today for a quiet weather pattern. All right, 88 outside at the moment, 90 in Austin. The heat index, yeah, there's humidity around, so you're going to feel that. It feels like 90 outside. It's not off the chart. It's not even close to advisory level, but it is hot and humid. Feels like 96 at times in Tell City, now down to 94 and 94 into Austin and Salem. Now, because the stagnant air mass that we have, the pollutants are trapped right over the city of Louisville and the metro. That's why the counties, including Clark down to Bullitt, are included. It's the general zone here, the Ohio Valley core right over the city. That's where the pollutants are trapped. There's not enough wind to stir things up. So it's just a natural buildup of ozone, basically, and that can be harmful if you have breathing ailments. I have asthma, so I feel your pain on that, so make sure to keep those inhalers handy and stay close to the AC if you can. No word yet. This is going to be extended into Wednesday, but we'll keep you updated. All right, here's the severe weather risk for the next few days. General thunderstorms, no marginal slight risk indicators anywhere nearby. Interesting that they put a non-thunderstorm patch over Kentucky. Yeah, it is a little warmer there aloft. I can see why the thunderstorm potential will be more limited because of the ridging of high pressure there. But we saw a couple busts through that yesterday. So I think in general, everybody in the entire region of wave country here has a chance at a pop-up. But I could see why they did it. Either way, tomorrow we could see that trend to keep us in a thunderstorm chance will be there. And then as we into Friday and the weekend, it's going to be a different trigger, basically, for the activity. I'll get into that in a second. Let's take you into what's happening now and this afternoon. We've had a couple of downpours develop. Keep in mind, just like we saw in St. Matthews last night, these little downpours can develop. I mean, that thunderstorm in St. Matthews is about 2 to 3 miles wide. It doesn't have any wind energy aloft to keep it going for much longer than maybe 15, 20 minutes. So it's its own heat engine, its own machine, and that's why we always stress that just a typical thunderstorm, is remarkable because it's its own heat engine itself. It has a lot of energy movement going on between the cold and the warm air aloft within the thunderstorm. There's a lot that happens in a very short amount of time. It doesn't have to be a big, massive squall line or a big supercell. Thunderstorms in general are machines. And when they develop, they can develop rapidly. And because if there is no wind aloft to keep them going longer than that 15 to 20 minutes, they are their own demise. They eventually collapse. It is that collapse that produces a strong gust of wind and heavy rain and can cause some tree damage, like we saw in St. Matthews and around Linden. But they're done after that. But the problem is that little gust of wind, because it's a cold wind, acts as a little mini cold front. It blows out from it, and then right down the road, another one builds up because it feels that cold air and it lifts upward, and boom, there you go. You got another thunderstorm. And that process can go for a while until eventually it just they run out of energy and run out of cold air to work with, and it's over with. And we saw that Northeast Jefferson County and Oldham County last night. That's the kind of scenario we're dealing with today and tomorrow. Very isolated cases of that, if at all. But again, with the lack of wind around, there's just not much to keep them going much more than that 15, 20 minutes. And so it's never a guarantee they even get to the mature stage. But we do have a couple out there. We've had them mainly over Clark County today. Wouldn't route a few more developing as we get into the core of the afternoon here. The trend here across the lower 48, though, a few features that I want to point out that are going to be our headlines. First off, of importance of the weekend into early next week, the remnants of Erica right here across Georgia and Florida. It's going to move offshore, but it's going to throw a lot of Atlantic moisture in from the east starting Friday into Labor Day. Now, we'll go into more detail on this, but that could play havoc with forecast highs as well because it takes one downpour to move through at 3 in the afternoon. You're not going to hit 90 degrees, and it can knock you down into the lower 80s briefly. So temperatures will waver a bit across wave country depending if you get a thunderstorm or not. If you avoid any thunderstorm action, I think 90 or a little bit higher is going to be a little more likely. But either way, we'll watch this setup here for the southeast corner. We also have a front that is waiting for us back here across the front range of the Rockies. That'll arrive here next week. We'll discuss that. And we have a mess going on here in the Gulf of Mexico. I'll at least give you a hint of what that is looking like down the road. But let's discuss this afternoon first. The rapid refresh model here, the Triple R, always exaggerates these kind of setups with thunderstorm pop-ups because it even picks up on cumulus clouds and pops them on here as a storm. It's not always the case. It's a cumulus cloud. But either way, you can see how it's very speckled look. They don't move very much, and then once we get to sunset, they're gone. So that's the overall idea I want you to get from that, is that they're very limited on movement and how long they last. All right, and here's a good reason. Again, as I mentioned, there's not a lot of wind here in the Ohio Valley. High pressure is in control of our area. Usually when you get our severe weather days or active days on the radar. It's when you get wind shear 40 knots or higher, and we don't have anything close to that nearby. So again, they don't have a lot of support. However, they do have energy to work with, and that is what we're seeing here with the downdraft cape over 1,000. That's because the heat and humidity combination, that is when there is enough energy for them to create their own machine and produce that collapsing wind, and that's why we saw that last night in St. Matthews. And today, again, that environment is pretty much the same. All right, so here's the models as we head into Thursday. Again, a few thunderstorms developing across southern Indiana and northern Kentucky. Again, the core of the high is right over here, so it's going to be mainly anywhere on the northeast side of this high pressure is where you're going to get your best chance to get enough cold air above the warm air to create any type of thunderstorm potential to develop. Otherwise, it's just mainly really warm here on the western side of Kentucky, all the way up in the atmosphere quite a bit. So you got to have that imbalance to have thunderstorms, and if you don't have the imbalance, nothing's really going to happen. You get a few clouds, and that's it. All right, they fade away, and then as we into Friday, this is when it gets a little more active looking. This is probably overdone as well, but let me explain why. Let me start you off with the Canadian model. This is for the weekend here. Here are the remnants of Erica, again hugging near Savannah, and it's throwing in that tropical moisture in from the east. The closer you are to, I would say, Cumberland and Tennessee, I think you will be in the deeper moisture fields and perhaps more impact from thunderstorms. But it's not going to be widespread. It's going to be very broken little areas of lines. But keep in mind the motion is going to be east to west on the thunderstorm action on the radar. They'll be drifting east to west. Nothing fast, but enough drift going on that you'll have to look in the opposite direction this weekend for thunderstorms. So if you look to the east and the skies are dark, that storm is probably heading toward you, not away from you. Kind of the opposite thinking here. But look what happens. It tries to bring Erica back to life. It moves it offshore and moves it back to the west inland into Georgia by Monday night and Tuesday. That would be interesting. We've seen that happen before many times. And it's rare for Savannah, really, to see anything tropical like that hit them because they have not had a hurricane in more than 100 years. Really, it hit them directly. Charleston, different story, but Savannah, because of the way they're shaped on the coastline here, they usually avoid all that. But anyway, this is not going to be a hurricane, but it's showing up as a tropical depression, perhaps, moving through, maybe even a weak storm. But keep in mind, the Canadian model has a tendency to overreact on tropical systems. I learned that when I worked at the Weather Channel. So, got to take it with a grain of salt, but it is interesting to see that at least. All right, so then, as we head into next Wednesday, I think that front that I showed you in the Front Range of the Rockies, I think it finally will arrive here. We still have the tropical system here, and then we got the front combination. Timing on this is slowed down compared to yesterday. It looks to be Wednesday night, maybe Thursday, somewhere in there. It'll move through with a band of showers and thunderstorms, and depending on when it moves through, that will affect our highs. If it moves through too early on Wednesday, we may not get much above 81, 82 for a high. If it waits until Wednesday night, we could have another day in the 90s Wednesday. But that would affect Thursday. Thursday will likely be a cooler day. So we'll see how that plays out. But then look what happens. Next weekend, the Canadian takes all that mess in the Gulf of Mexico I was showing you and develops into a hurricane and heads toward New Orleans. I wonder how long this is going to take to go viral. Please do not take a screenshot of this. But anyway, as I mentioned, the Canadian has a tendency to overreact, and it is picking up on the idea of something going on. Now, is it crazy? No. I think there's lower pressures definitely in the Gulf right now. The water is very warm in the Gulf at the moment. So this is not out of the realm of possibility. I don't know if I would say a hurricane, but something, yeah. I mean, that's possible. But the saving grace for us, really, is that the front at that point should be by here, and mainly to the south of Kentucky. Here's the what it could become the new Erica. Well, then, again, it moves in a very odd direction. It moves offshore this weekend, moves back in to southeast Georgia on Monday, and then gets sucked up by the front and pushed out to sea by the next weekend. That's crazy to see that, but that is possibly the case. And we'll see what happens with this tropical system here in the Gulf, if that even happens at all. For us, though, if we get the front through here next Wednesday and Thursday, really nice weather may move in for at least a couple of days. Now, let me show you the GFS. Here is for the weekend. It is showing the messiness of the remnants of Erica. It shows the flow here, backflow of thunderstorms for the weekend. Now, as we went into Monday, Tuesday, and remember, I had Erica moving back into Georgia and deepening to a depression. GFS just doesn't see it that way. It does bring the front in Wednesday, a little bit slower, in fact, brings it in more Wednesday night, early Thursday, but still doesn't show much going on with the remnants, and it tries to see something going on in the Gulf, but as we enter the next weekend, I mean, if you look at the overall setup to the Canadian, it's similar. It has the front south of us. It has the remnants of Erica, too, somewhere off the southeast coast, but it doesn't have much going on in the Gulf as far as anything organized. We'll see how it plays out. The operational GFS, by the way, for mid-September for that strong autumn front, it didn't show it today. It's showing a very quick glance of cool air, and it's back to a ridging warm pattern moving through. But the ensembles, which take more into account, still show a trough more likely to develop in mid-September. So at this point, we're going to keep the forecast on par with what we've had so far, and we'll just trend it carefully. That's it for right now, guys. See you today at 5.